Welcome to The Kingdom Sleeps. In today's episode, we once again follow Hiram as he explores Fort Owari. Today's episode art is brought to you by Kotoraya Rizue, and today's music is brought to you by Dominic Kalajdzic.
As always, a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you would like to support the podcast, you can find us at patreon.com/thekingdomsleeps.
And with that, close your eyes, make yourselves comfortable, and join us where the kingdom sleeps. Hiram, your feet are almost autonomously at this point carrying you across the halls of Fort Owari as Benrin Losto, the servant supreme of the Guardians Guild, walks just ever so slightly ahead of you. And you are followed behind by two as yet anonymous Guardians Guild guards. The bright stone lights above your head are starting to feel particularly bright. And as you are being led through the halls in a direction that as yet in the time you've spent here, you've never been before. And these halls go on and on. Your eyes are beginning to sting with fatigue. And your mind is certainly starting to feel a little clouded. What exactly is going through Hiram's mind?
The arrival of the Servant Supreme, especially with the apparent knowledge that he has, ramps the stakes up a lot for Hiram. This is someone that he respects, but is now feeling like he may have inadvertently found himself on an opposing side to him. And given the lateness of the hour, Hiram's feeling the sluggishness of his mind and the ebb of the relentless adrenaline that he's been running on for the hours past. He, at this point, is feeling more and more like he's lost his paddle, and he's on a river that is crashing downhill, and is feeling less and less in control and capable of stopping it.
Given this, I would like you to now roll me a Constitution check. I will deem over a 10 as a success.
Is that a saving throw?
Yes.
That's a 22.
Despite this fatigue, I think there must be something about the curious nature of everything that you've uncovered that it's just keeping that adrenaline in your veins, pumping around your body, and the tiredness you feel is somewhat suppressed. It's almost as if it is keeping you more alert as you are still being steadily guided through this It's beginning to feel like an infinite maze of corridors that wind round corners. You are being taken into sections, as I say, of Fort Owari that you've never been before, and they appear to be much more heavily guarded. Every so often, you will approach a huge fortified door that requires some sort of bright stone pass held by the guards in your rear to open, and they'll put it up against what looks like a flat bright stone panel, and these doors shift apart, and as they do you can see their weight. These large metallic doors that seem to also have straight, glassy inlays of brightstone in them. As they shift apart, you move through, and you can hear them grinding and clunking to a close behind you. And at this point, you'll have been through 5 of these gates so far, as Benrin, just in front of you, for the first time since you began walking, cocks his head to the side and addresses you. I'm sure this is all a little bit confusing for you, Hiram.
Certainly unexpected.
Yes, well, let's just say we put a lot of work into ensuring that it is that way.
I can only imagine that I have stumbled on something you had every intention of sharing with me at some point. Or have I become an inconvenience to your servant supreme?
Would you like to roll an insight?
Yes, please. That's a 14.
On a 14, the Servant Supreme continues to walk forward, very steadily as he did before, but you might just notice a tensing of his fingers, a creating of a fist, just subtly as he walks, and replies, "Well, let's just say we're happy to be sharing our secrets with you now. Hiram, do not fear. I'm hoping that you will be nothing like an inconvenience for us. Perhaps I'm hoping, someone who could be quite useful to what we have in store."
As ever, I am at your service.
I will apologize for giving you a scare this evening. I'm sure it wasn't very pleasant finding the device behind your walls.
As I said, this evening has been full of unexpected occurrences.
Well, I wouldn't want it to affect any trust between us, Hiram.
Forgive me, Servant Supreme, but the very nature of such a device being concealed implies a lack of trust.
Unfortunately, Hiram, we in the Guardians Guild, but more especially within the Royal Operations, start from a position of mistrust. It is standard procedure for us to keep an eye on certain individuals that we feel could be useful to us. Of course, you've been employed here for some time and are doing a great duty to the kingdom at large. But of course your talents are great. It is no secret that your mind is brilliant. And well, to speak frankly with you, Hiram. And now he begins to drop back, and he walks by your side. Well, your talents, put towards an ill direction, that could spell catastrophe for the entirety of Sopros. I suppose we wanted to make sure, definitely sure, that you were in line with the interests of the kingdom. It is not something personal, I must stress. As I say, a standard procedure.
Hiram just thinks for a moment and finds himself asking and then looking at the Servant Supreme. Is he afraid of me? I will say, I share your hope that we can come to trust each other.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I certainly am. I do hope that once I show you what I have to show you here this evening, we will not only come to trust each other, but you will find it of great interest. Perhaps we will enjoy a more close working relationship.
Perhaps.
You can roll me another insight, please.
6.
Yeah, the Servant Supreme, after your words, perhaps, continues to smile. You can see the creasing in his eyes as he looks at you for just a few seconds longer than you might expect him to. Now, at this point in the conversation, you have not only travelled down 3 sets of steps, but entered through 4 more large metal and bright stone gates. And you are now finding yourself walking through, unlike the regular curved corridors that you're familiar with in the rest of Fort Owari, you're walking through straight, quite narrow corridors. Either side of you, sort of normal-sized, but again metal fortified doors. And at the end of this corridor is an open archway through which you can see there is an illuminated space. This corridor is very dimly lit with quite dull bright stone lights, but ahead of you is a very bright room. And as you make your way halfway across this quite long corridor, you begin to hear the sounds of industry, clinking and clanging metal, hammering, calling of workers, rushing of liquids. This, Hiram, is where some of the most marvelous things take place. In Kopfyama Citadel. Now, I don't believe I have to stress too much in saying that everything you see here should remain strictly confidential. Nothing that takes place in this particular location is known about in the wider kingdom.
I fully appreciate the degree of security.
Fantastic. Well then, I welcome you to Kopfyama Citadel's Royal Operations. And you walk through the brightly lit archway into a huge hangar-sized room, wherein you see a myriad of various industries taking place. It's almost, it looks like some sort of theater of experiments taking place around you. Various spots. You can see high scaffolding off in the distance and workers surrounding it, tinkering away at large metal, what looks like it could be perhaps a structure or maybe even a device or a vehicle. It's uncertain in its incompleteness. You see people off over to the left, sort of holding large pieces of bright stone matter around a circular device on the floor, and they move around it in circles to create these strange flickering illusions in its center. Across the edges of this hangar, you see various workstations of much smaller projects happening, and you can see here flashes of light, there puffs of smoke protruding from all these individual goings on. And it's somewhat of an assault to the senses. Something pointedly you recognize as soon as you enter the room is that on the opposite side of this hangar there is yet another, slightly larger, metal and bright stone fortified door. And from this, with no investigation needed, you can tell most certainly that even here that you're being brought, the secrets do not stop. There is some place deeper than this even. But the Servant Supreme continues walking through this hangar and seems to have a very specific place he'd like to bring you in it. So, what do you think?
Well, it is quite the operation. What exactly is the desired outcome of this project?
Well, Hiram, the desired outcome is progress, in whatever form it may take. Here is a top secret, I suppose you could call it an engineer's playground of experiments that are looking into various new applications of technologies that could be used in a wide variety of ways, mainly military. But if we see any new opportunities for Brightstone development, or any technological development, well, it takes place here.
And a reference to the large metallic vehicle or structure. If we take something such as this, for example, what makes this form of engineering investigation and experimentation need to be so deep in the belly of the beast, where a tow-home tractor needn't be?
Well, Hiram, it would be a marvelous world we live in if our kingdom were wholly united and we had no forces working against us in any way. But unfortunately, we don't live in a world like that. And whilst a tow-home tractor is extremely useful for the industry of the world, it doesn't quite have such powerful, all-changing applications as perhaps referencing this large structure this vehicle might do. But I'm not here with you, Hiram, to discuss this particular project. I'm actually here to discuss something slightly more curious. And as you walk across the hangar, you can see that you are in fact being guided to this larger fortified door. And as the Servant Supreme himself now takes out his passing stone to open it, you can see on the outside of this fortified door a doorway smaller than the entire door itself, but just large enough for yourself and the Servant Supreme to enter through. Sort of inlays itself into the door. And he throws his hand forward, inviting you to step forward first.
Before I go through, might I note exactly where the Servant Supreme drew the passing stone from, and any distinctive features of it, just for future mental safekeeping?
Absolutely. Evidently, he drew it from his breastplate. He himself wears the regalia of all Guardians Guild members, so he is heavily armored in silver and gold and the insignia of the kingdom. In terms of its detail, he holds it in a cupped palm. So as he draws it towards the plate, it's a little difficult to look at, but I'll allow you to roll an investigation.
It's an 8.
As much as you can see as his hand passes towards the passing plate, it is sort of a circular, gold-rimmed, almost looks like a medallion with a polished piece of white bright stone in the center, with a definite and complicated glyph in the center, though with the brief look you got, you couldn't say exactly what that glyph pertained to.
I nod towards the Servant Supreme, and at his beckoning, walk through the door.
He smiles at you as you do so. And as you walk through the door, you enter yet again another corridor. Another dimly lit corridor with small, but still fortified, doors on either side, very much like the one you've just come through. And the Servant Supreme, coming ahead of you just a little bit, takes you not very far through this corridor.
Are the guards still with us?
They have now since remained in the hangar. It is just yourself and the Servant Supreme. And he takes you through to a door that seems just like any other on this side. Though you notice that the corridor does carry on some way. He uses his pass once again to let you through. And you open into a fairly large laboratory setting. And in this room, there appears to be an engineer working. And what you can see in front of you is a large, let's say, what Brandon would know to be car-sized device that looks fairly complicated. There are several tubes and what look like pistons that interact and weave towards a large central, what looks like a glass prism. And this glass prism is butted right up against this large glass pane that separates half of the room away from you. So imagine in your mind something resembling a two-way glass situation where half the room is cut off from you by glass. You've got a sort of like an empty space, and on the other side is yourself, the Servant Supreme, this engineer who's working away at this device which butts right up against this glass. It looks almost like some sort of complicated cannon, to put it crudely, that is right up against the glass. On the other side of the room that you cannot access due to this large pane of glass is nothing. Essentially, it's a completely empty space with white walls and one bright stone lamp, very bright, in the ceiling. And the only thing in the room is a short plinth in its center, and on that plinth what appears to be a large, unadulterated chunk of brightstone.
What do we have here? I address the engineer in the room.
The engineer, as you say these words, is quite flustered. Doesn't appear to have noticed until you say these words that anyone has entered the room. And up until now, you couldn't really discern their face, but they poke their head to the side and you see this ragged bundle of hair on the head of a rather slim-faced, but at the same time sort of portly bellied fey gentleman with these huge beer bottle glasses on, and you can see his wide eyes look at you with a little bit of shock as he dusts off his hands in order to greet you properly, and sort of toddles up to you a little bit, extending a hand. Hiram Tone.
Pleasure. And you are?
I am Farwell Homestead, an engineer here at, and he looks over to the Servant Supreme briefly, as the Servant Supreme gives him a short, curt nod. Yes, here in the Royal Operations. I've been looking forward to meeting you for some time. There was word that we might be utilizing your services, and we could certainly use them, especially on a project as complicated as this.
I turn from Farwell and just pointedly look at the Servant Supreme for a moment with an implied question, but turn back to Farwell before actually giving him a chance to answer. And what exactly is it that we have here? Talk me through it.
Come this way, and he ushers you towards the device. So, we are utilizing certain brightstone technologies that have, let us say more, he once again, you can see, pointedly looks over to the Servant Supreme. Can you roll me an insight, please?
It's cocked. I'm gonna...
Absolutely.
That's a 17.
As he begins to explain this device, as I say, he looks over to the Servant Supreme, whose face does not change. It looks at him pointedly and seriously. And you can see a stern coldness in it that you feel might mean something to you if you knew him a little better. As far as you can see, he just looks angry. And Farwell looks back to you. Certain new brightstone innovations to create this particular device.
I incline my head towards this large slab of brightstone on the pedestal on the opposite side of the room. A volatile power source or fuel?
Yes, somewhat. That we are using within this device. It is rather volatile.
One moment, and I turn to the Servant Supreme. Servant Supreme, are we going to exercise our desired trust or not?
The Servant Supreme, who has to make a pained effort almost to jolt himself out of his default furrowed brow and angry stare begins to attempt to soften visibly. Hiram, I assure you that we are exercising quite a lot of trust in simply bringing you here, now. These are technologies that are not ready to be put out into the world in any means, even in theory or concept. And certain elements of its design, well, we would prefer they remain a secret, if I'm to be frank, for now.
I, again, understand the need for security. But if I am to know if I can be of any help to you, you cannot aim me at an engineering problem blindfolded with my hands behind my back. What use do you wish me to be to you?
What we would ask of you is to, for now, do the very best that you can with what we give you. Should you come to nothing, we may find it suitable to divulge certain further information.
I suppose we will work with what we have.
Your kingdom thanks you, Hiram. Farewell. I think it might be appropriate to demonstrate somewhat of this machine, yes? Farewell grins excitedly. Yes, absolutely. I think you'll be quite impressed with this. This is, honestly, sort of outside anything I've personally worked on in terms of Brightstone technology. As you'll see, as it operates, there are some kinks that need working out. I personally don't believe that it is anything to do with its particular power source. I think it might be something to do with the glass alignments towards the central prism. But you may see yourself in just a moment. Please give me a second to set this, put it in the correct calibration.
Of course, and anything that you are at liberty to explain as you go, I am all ears. I glance at the Servant Supreme again.
The Servant Supreme continues to smile curtly towards yourself and Farwell. Farwell picks up his adjustment tool once again, beginning to address this sort of large central tubular hole in the far end center of the device, and seems to be opening up some kind of space crevice in the inside of it. And after having done so, he uses a small Brightstone switcher at the side to turn the device on, and you can hear it begin to hum with a certain resonance, a certain energy. And you can see these glass tubes that run from this central power source, you could say. I think I'll ask you to roll me. I'm asking you to look at something that Hiram would be familiar with. This is very much within Hiram's wheelhouse, but it's quite different to the norm of any sort of engineering project he might usually be familiar with it. I'll ask you to roll an Arcana check for me, please.
It's a 14.
I think it's actually only fair to say you are able to roll that with advantage.
Still a 14.
14. So, wherein you may usually see the central powering device, which will be a bright stone rune of sorts with a glyph in the center. Usually, this is open to some degree in any sort of device, be it the tow-home tractor or any of the specialized weapons that you are helping to design as part of your stay here. If you have a centrally powering bright stone glyph, it will be exposed so that you can clearly see what is the glyphed mechanism behind the thing operating the device. Where it seems that the normal bright stone device would be is a heavy metal box that is completely closed off, and these glass tubes are coming out of it. And so, although this box appears to be powering the device, you cannot see what's inside. From this box, out of the glass tubes, you begin to see light irradiate, almost like fiber optic tubing that then shoots down this sort of interwoven network of quite intricately put together glass tubes, some that sort of like helix together towards this central prism. And this prism is this long triangular piece of glass that is quite thick, large as well. And you can see light begin to fill this prism as the device is turned on. And Farwell takes his hand and inserts it into this central tube that he was just adjusting for, and moves his whole arm down inside of it as if he were putting on a very long, very large mechanical glove. Almost. And as he does this, you begin to see that these glass tubes filled with light begin to flood with an inky blackness. And they roll through these winding tubes and flush into the triangular prism which butts right up against that glass screen. And from the other side of the glass screen begins to shimmer and glitch the image of a huge humanoid hand, the size of a human, a normal human being, as Hiram, as Brandon would know it, but in hand form, that begins to stretch and move forward towards this central plinth with the large piece of unadulterated bright stone on it. And this large hand, which also rolls and smokes with this inky black texture, begins to stretch forward and loom towards the bright stone as if a trawling ghost. And its fingers reach out towards the bright stone and grab onto it like a hand with an apple and begin to lift the bright stone from the plinth into the air. And just as it does so, this ghostly apparition, this dark phantom of a hand, begins to falter, to glitch, to puff and splutter in form, and suddenly form disintegrates as the machine begins to do similar, and the blackness within the glass tubes begins to roll and dissipate away to be replaced with this bright light once again, and Farwell sharply removes his hand, and the machine appears to turn itself off entirely as he does so. As you can see, there is some fault, I believe, with the orientation of the glass angling tubes that is not quite, how you say, refining the fractured light well enough to produce the effect that we're after for a long period of time. It seems to want to dissipate. We can't seem to have it be consistent and stable. But, yes, we seem to have been capable of producing what would usually be a substanceless illusion, but with utility that we can actually use to move large things, which I think is quite remarkable.
Indeed, I have so many questions. Am I right in thinking the hand that we saw was emulating the movements of your hand?
That is correct, yes. I insert my hand and it mirror maps my actions, so I am able to directly control what happens on the other side of the screen.
And do you experience a tactile sensation when the apparition makes contact? Or
it is a tactile sensation.
There is resistance as you grip.
I think probably the best way to explain it is for you to try if you would like.
I look at the Servant Supreme questioningly.
At this stage, having your attention drawn solely towards the apparition and the mechanisms of this device, as you look over to the Servant Supreme, you will see that he is now cross-armed and leaning up against a wall, if anything looking slightly bored by the proceedings, and as you look over to him, he simply nods in approval.
I will try.
I will assure you it is quite intuitive, though don't be too startled by the sensation. It is a unique one, and I wouldn't say entirely pleasant.
I see. Is there a reason that the medium you wish to manipulate using this machine is Brightstone? Have you attempted to manipulate other things?
Oh, yes, it can manipulate all sorts of things. Any physical matter, absolutely. We just happen to have quite a lot of large Brightstone, and it's very heavy, so it's a good test of its weight-bearing capability.
It is only a hunch, but it appeared to me that perhaps the apparition was incompatible in some way with the Brightstone. Does the apparition struggle to carry non-Brightstone materials of a similar weight?
I suppose I'd never really thought about it in that sense. I mean, the device, of course, I can't go into the details, but it is of Brightstonic design and influence, so I don't see why it should necessarily. Well, there is slightly different, but now that you mention it, I think tests with things other than Brightstone have been somewhat more successful, although not entirely. I think there is something still not quite refined about the way that we've focused this particular energy source.
Let me try. I'm sure I will experience more than you are allowed to tell me.
With a wry smile and shuffling backwards, he leaves the machine open for you to explore as you will.
I would like to take as close a look at this concealed box in the center as I possibly can before I try and activate or utilize the machine in any way.
Okay. Roll me an investigation, please.
That's an 8.
Looking at this sealed box, you can't even see where it might have been sealed. It looks so perfectly kept together. On an 8, do you think you would have attempted to open the box, to touch the box at all?
I would, if it's approachable, I would have liked to at least see if there's any temperature change on it. I would touch it.
If you were to touch it, you stretch your hand forward, and just as your fingers touch the surface of the box, Farwell lets out a small yelp and puts a hand towards you, and as your finger touches it, you will immediately feel that it is extremely hot. And you whip your finger away as quickly as you can, fearing that it would burn if you left it there any longer.
I turn to Farwell, as I expected. Does the machine have a cooling system?
No, not necessarily, though I can assure you that the temperature you're experiencing there is necessary for function.
How long have you been working on this, Farwell?
Oh, not very long, honestly. 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. And you are not the designer of this machine, or?
We, a small team. I'm the chief designer, I suppose you could say, but I haven't done it alone, no.
Okay. Allow me, and I reach for the Brightstone switcher.
You turn the Brightstone switcher, and you see once again that light roll through the glass tubes and the prism. Would you like to insert your hand?
I will.
As you reach inside of the long tube, once again, you see this dark, rolling, inky mist fill the transparent tubes of the machine. You begin to feel this hot, tingling around your arm, palm, and fingers. It almost feels like several very small needles are stitching themselves into your skin in order that they can hold your arm in place inside of this tube. And it gives you a strange feeling in your stomach as you begin to see your own hand suddenly projecting itself as a dark shadow on the other side of this glass. I would like you to roll me a wisdom saving throw, please.
It's a 4.
As you begin to see this vision of your own hand project itself in front of you, and you just begin to move your arm as such that you truly see and feel that your body is connected to this apparition in front of you. That the movement of your hand is the movement of this darkness. That strange feeling in the pit of your stomach becomes dense and starts to feel like a hot lead of anxiety. And you are very quickly and sharply filled with a feeling of mistrust and a feeling of unkindness towards you, and a feeling of wanting to run away, feeling of deep cowardliness. And it makes you want to pull your arm out of that machine as quickly as possible, as these needles feel like they pull at your skin to almost draw you into the heart of the machine itself.
I clench my fist and I think reflexively pull upwards, bumping the internal of the glass in the machine, and try to yank my arm out.
Okay. Roll me a strength, please.
That's a 5.
As you attempt to pull your hand from this machine, it almost feels like there is a rushing flow of water that draws itself from the base of your forearm through the prism and towards this shimmering apparition. And you actually begin to see that the hand grows larger and larger, and it begins to occupy more and more of the space on the other side of this room. And you begin to see that the glass tubes, almost you perceive in reaction to the jerking upwards and the knocking on the side of the apparatus, begin to shimmer and flick between light and dark in quick succession, and this rolling ink can sort of dissipate as quickly as it re-emerges, and it's almost like there's this churning confliction between light and dark going on as your hand gets drawn further and further in until it reaches this ever-flickering crescendo that then you see cracks the largest triangular prism butting right up against the glass. And the machine switches down, the apparition disappears. You begin to see the bright stone light in the other side of the room flicker ever so gently. And there is a stillness. The machine is off, and your hand, though tingling terribly, appears now to be free. But you will take 5 points of psychic damage.
I look at my hand, blink a few times, and turn towards Farwell first.
You can see that Farwell raises his hands up in some alarm, at the same time as looking directly to the prism, talks to you, saying, "Oh, don't worry, Hiram, don't worry," and moves over towards the prism. This happens semi-frequently. It's not unusual. It does take a little bit of time to learn to coincide with the device, I suppose you could say.
Farwell, I believe you said that to use the device is not exactly pleasant.
Well, no, it's not.
You might have better informed me than that. This is dangerous, Farwell.
Oh, no.
I turn towards the Servant Supreme, and my safety has been put at risk without my foreknowledge. Servant Supreme, this is exactly why I need to know what I'm dealing with. And I reference towards the clearly broken machine and the flustered Farwell with complete indignation.
The Servant Supreme, who is, as he looks over to you, still leaning up against the wall with this sort of resigned, the only way I can describe it is boredom, looking at you, sort of laboriously drags himself away from the side of the wall to stand up straight to address you. If you feel you must know more, in order to proceed, we can certainly inform you. But I'm afraid certain knowledge comes with certain consequences.
Consequences?
That's right. You can't know the secrets of the kingdom and retain your freedom. You understand?
And what freedom do I retain right now, Servant Supreme?
The life you live, as you know it. Are you happy with it?
Compared to what? We only have one life.
Yes, Hiram. We do. I tell you what. Why don't we all sleep on the matter? I think you've stayed up quite past your bedtime, haven't you, Hiram? Rather than attending to your usual duties, tomorrow, I request that upon your arrival at Fort Owari in the morning, you be asked to be directed to basement development. And you will come here to work. And I will explain what you want to know so that you might understand this device a little better. How does that sound?
Do I have a choice?
You always have a choice, Hiram. But I think you know the choice that you're making.
Do you?
Roll me an insight, please.
That's 15.
Benrin is angry that you've said that. In a way that he sees himself to have been directly threatened. Yes. Yes. I spent a long time to be sure that I know what choices I made.
Then I will be sure to do the same.
Very good. glad to hear it, Hiram. Well, thank you, Farwell. I'm sure you will be able to manage repairs before tomorrow morning, so we may start afresh. Farwell, whilst attending to the large prism, simply bows his head in assent. Very good. Follow me. Follow me, Hiram.
Of course. Thank you, Farwell.
Thank you, Hiram. Don't worry about the machine. It's all very fixable. It's quite modular. I will see you in the morning.
All the best.
It is a very somber and quiet walk as you proceed back through the hangar. You're joined by the guards and proceed to make your way.
Before we are joined by the guards, if we're still in the corridor,
of course,
alone, I would like to stop a moment. Servant Supreme, something you said earlier, it had me wondering. Who exactly do you consider an enemy of the kingdom? Who is your enemy?
That's a fair question, Hiram. A fair question. For someone who isn't as entrenched in the politics of the kingdom as I am, you might perceive our fair kingdom to be a wholly good, wholly peaceful one. And we certainly work hard to make sure our citizens believe it is so. I wish I could point to but one alien force, one ghost or poltergeist that is the ruin of us, but the truth is, they are many and varied. Many wish to see the destruction of our monarchy, of the way our society has been put together, has been diligently built by our ancestors to support our freedom of productivity, creativity. There are those who seek to let the Mamu, and these are the more cosmic forces of the world, take a faster hold over the order that we've built.
Cosmic forces, Servant Supreme.
You think me slightly mad, do you?
Not mad, of course. The superstitions of many are not a sign of madness.
Hiram, I will assure you, in the morning, when you arrive here, much that you believed to be superstition will be proven to be real.
And presumably, I am to discover that I too have enemies that I was not aware of.
Unfortunately so, Hiram. All the more reason we should stick together. Come. It is late.
Yes. I am to return to my flat?
If you please.
I would like that.
Then do as you like. Though I will be more transparent. This time in letting you know. We'll be aware of your movements.
I will bear that in mind.
Thank you, Hiram. It truly is not personal. I respect highly your work and your intelligence.
The respect is mutual, I assure you.
As you take that long walk back through the many gated corridors that led you to this place, are there any thoughts that cross Hiram's mind, or is there anything else he'd like to discern before he exits Fort Owari?
I'm very conscious of the hidden nature of the apparent power source of that machine that Farwell was working on. And I guess as I walk back through the larger hangar room with all of those projects in it, I would want to try and keep an eye out for anything, any kind of container or component of the projects in that room that seemed of a similar ilk.
Roll me an investigation.
That's an 18.
As you take a walk across the length of this large hangar room, which does, due to its size, take some time, you're given a moment to scrutinize these experiments in more detail. And everywhere you look, you see there to be exposed bright stone power sources, some of which you can identify fairly clearly. And you can even discern with an 18 that this large device, surrounded by the scaffolding on a second look, has been designed to move a great distance upwards, as if to travel through the sky. But you see nothing similar to what you did behind that other gated corridor.
As we leave that room and continue our way back up to the surface, Hiram's thoughts certainly turn towards Farwell and the other engineers who were at work in that hangar right now, and considers what kinds of freedoms they have relinquished, willingly or not, to be working on these projects. Did the engineers in those rooms appear distressed?
I'll let you roll me a retrospective insight on that.
That's 14.
On a 14, you could at the very least see that every single one you set eyes on looked to be working hard and to be somewhat under stress, working with some deliberation, and whether that be simply the time of night, the shift that they happen to be pulling, or something more nefarious, you couldn't quite say.
And I don't recognize any of them.
No one in that room poked themselves out to you to be someone that you are familiar with.
Hiram is feeling the weight of the choice before him. Only added to by the implicit pressure from the Servant Supreme. I think Hiram is considering for the first time the moral duty that might be attached to the rather clinical engineering work that he has participated in for his entire life. What was once just an indulgence of curiosity and the joy of discovery and innovation suddenly feels like it's been sullied with agendas and powers that he'd hitherto not considered. And that's a new approach for him. And he thinks of his family. And of his dad. And longs for help.
As these thoughts deeply embed themselves in Hiram's mind, and he exits the main gates of Fort Owari, with the Servant Supreme always just ahead of him. He stands heavy on the pavement just outside, waiting for the Servant Supreme is a bright stone chariot. And just before Benrin approaches it, he turns to you. I hope we can look forward to working together, Hiram. I really do.
Thank you, Servant Supreme. I understand the great exercise of trust that this evening has required of you.
I am confident it will be worth it. And he bends his head down to seat himself in the chariot. The door closes. His chauffeur pulls away down the long bridge that leads to the front of Fort Owari. And Hiram now stands alone in a still, quiet night in Kopfyama Citadel.
And somehow, Hiram finds a new, deeper sense of being alone than he ever has. And with little thought, he begins to walk back towards his flat.